Now, $2 trillion in spending cuts is a whole lot of money, even though we're still cutting taxes for $4.5 trillion, as in it's still, if you're a deficit hawk, you're still increasing that. Okay, so it doesn't matter. But of course, there's always room in the deficit for growth if you are cutting tax for the wealthy and corporations, obviously. But that's the case. We have the House Republicans passing the budget blueprint while all this stuff is happening, so I'm going to obviously cover that as well. This is some pretty damning stuff in general. Let's take a look.
Capitol Hill now in the House, narrowly passing a budget plan last night. It was a major test for House Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump's agenda. Joe Bryan checking the latest on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, George. Republicans celebrating this morning, narrowly getting their budget blueprint through the House, fulfilling a key promise to President Trump, but only after drama up here on the Hill.
Overnight chaos in Congress as the vote to pass the House Republicans' budget blueprint was on, then off, then on again. Republican leaders stalling for more than an hour, wrangling holdout votes, then appearing to cancel the vote, members heading home, only to be told to rush back. House Republicans ultimately adopting the budget resolution along party lines, the first step toward passing President Donald Trump's sweeping legislative agenda. It was a major test for Speaker Mike Johnson and his razor-thin majority. Trump personally pressuring some of the 4 holdout votes and 3 finally flipping.
Were you worried about defying him by voting no? No, not at all.
But Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey not budging, concerned about the overall costs.
We are cutting taxes and we're not going to cut spending to match it, so the deficit's going to go up. That's what this bill does.
The budget resolution aims to cut at least $2 trillion in federal spending over 10 years, includes at least 4.5.
I thought these guys were deficit hawks. So weird. Hey, guess what's not getting a cut? The military. $10 billion in additional funds year over year, chat, for a decade to the tune of $100 billion. Wonderful stuff.
$1 trillion in tax cuts, hoping to extend Trump's 2017 cuts, which expire at the end of the year, and raises the debt limit by $4 trillion. Aware of the slim margins, Democrats rushing in missing members to vote. Congressman Kevin Mullen from California jumping on a plane just after being discharged from spending the last 10 days in the hospital for a blood clot. And Representative Brittany Peterson, who is on maternity leave, speaking after voting no while holding her 1-month-old baby.
Unfortunately, I wasn't given the opportunity to vote remotely after giving birth, but I wasn't going to let that stop me from being here to represent my constituents and vote no on this disastrous Republican budget proposal.
While specific budget cuts haven't been determined, Democrats warning
It's so sick that the Republicans are one, engaging in mass layoffs for the administrative state, okay, for the federal government, also actively offering permanent tax cuts for the super wealthy and corporations, okay, deep tax cuts. You might get a crumb. You might get a crumb in the process. Make no mistake, you'll get like $5 back. Don't worry, okay? And also, while they're talking about cutting wasteful government spending, they're increasing government spending on the military. Fantastic.
Medicaid, the health care program for low-income Americans and those with disabilities, is expected to be slashed.
The reckless Republican budget will cut taxes up to $4.5 trillion for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and then they are sticking working-class Americans, middle-class Americans, and everyday Americans with the bill.
This is just the first step in a months-long budget process in both the House and Senate, but the chaos just to clear this vote spells trouble for other legislative fights ahead, including averting a government shutdown next month. Robin.
More to come, as you said, Jay. Thank you.
Right.
Can you guarantee that?
Okay. Let's get to David Dane, okay, who will describe to us what just took place. You know, before we get to the Trump response to Medicare and Medicaid. This is who let this shit pass. The absence is Grijalva, AZ, missing votes as he fights cancer. Mullen, California knee surgery. Peterson, Colorado maternity leave. Wilson, Florida, age 82, hasn't voted all month. 4 Dem absences on the budget rule vote, 1 Republican absence. I mean, I don't really care about how old they are and how sick they are and how they can't do their jobs because of that reason. Ultimately, you know, Mike Johnson was able to put together Mike Johnson was able to whip the votes for this, okay? After sending members home for the night, House Republicans called them back on Tuesday and secured a passage of an expansive budget resolution that includes virtually the entire Trump agenda. The final vote was 217-215, with all but 1 Republican, Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky, voting for the budget resolution, which sets a path for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts over the next decade, partially offset by at least $2 trillion in spending cuts. Now, $2 trillion in spending cuts is a whole lot of money, even though we're still cutting taxes for $4.5 trillion, as in it's still, if you're a deficit hawk, you're still increasing that, okay? So it doesn't matter. But of course, there's always room in the deficit for growth if you are cutting tax for the wealthy and corporations. Obviously, duh, shut the up. What are you, some woke, gay, commie libtard or something? Like, what do you mean? These are the most productive individuals in American society. Anyway, let's continue. The tiniest of margins carried out. What is the easy part of the budget reconciliation package? And it isn't even done. In fact, the House budget resolution is taught to be dead on arrival in the Senate. Passage of the resolution represents a victory for House Speaker Mike Johnson, especially as it looked bleak earlier on Tuesday. Johnson was able to flip several conservative House members to advance the measure, and he needed everyone after several House Democrats who had missed votes earlier in the day showed up for the evening. Representative Brittany Peterson of Colorado showed up 3 weeks after giving birth. Johnson was unable to corral the votes, mainly because the budget resolution is so indistinct. The resolution sets top-line numbers to instruct various committees, which will then come back with specifics. So you remember, they're basically, basically what's going on is Mike Johnson saying, we're just going to chop $2 trillion. And the way that it works in this vague, the vague ways in which this works is they just go back to the committees and say, hey, figure out a way to cut Medicaid. Okay. It's basically setting out bullet points and sending people home with, with goals to figure out how we are going to cut. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but that's the direction that they're heading towards. Throughout the day, House Republicans insisted that the proposed cuts didn't mean what they clearly meant because they were just instructions for committees that could be carried out in any manner. In reality, when the Agriculture Committee is told to find $230 billion in cuts, there's really only one thing that it could mean: a rollback on Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, for those of you who are wondering, which helps feed poor people. Unless the Ag Committee decides randomly to wipe out the lion's share of U.S. agricultural assistance, they're going to have to go after food stamps, as was laid out in the menu of budget options earlier this year. They're never going to go after the subsidies. The Ag Committee is not going to cut subsidies, which also would have a damaging impact on the economy regardless, because it would increase prices a lot if subsidies were to be cut. So there's that too. They're going to cut SNAP, which will directly starve poor people. Okay. Now, SNAP in and of itself also works as an additional subsidy for the same agricultural producers as well. SNAP is a government benefit that companies like Walmart take advantage of as well. Okay. The problem here is when you say, oh, well, cut all this stuff. Who gives a heck? Who cares? You're advocating for the demise of millions of people. Okay? Hold on. My food is here, but I don't understand where it is. Did he leave it outside? No, he didn't. All right. Bill Burr's cooking once again. What did he say now?
I made fun of the Twitter guy for fucking Sieg Heiling not once but twice. And I never look at my emails. I was scrolling through my emails and it said my Twitter account had been flagged for I don't even tweet anymore. It had been flagged for it. What a fucking baby. Just like Hitler, a baby. How about the fact that the Twitter guy he's not even from here. He's from South Africa. He comes to this country and wants to turn it into a dictatorship. He doesn't. Can you just imagine doing that? going to another country and just deciding, yeah, you know what? I'm going to change this form of government because I've decided. Yeah, he doesn't mind living under a dictatorship as long as he's on the good side of it. Fucking laminated face cunt. Because that's another thing. All of these people that are into fucking Hitler, you know what I mean? And like, look at this guy like he was some sort of fucking hero. The guy's one of the biggest fucking cowards ever. All the pain and all the suffering that guy's caused and the war crimes the Allies had to commit, firebombing fucking cities to get that motherfucker. When it came time for him to pay the price for all the suffering he caused millions and millions and millions of people. Did he face the music? Nope. He gave himself a nice, quick, painless fucking death. That's your fucking hero? Fucking coward is what he was. He should have faced the fucking music.
Great take. Going to another country and changing the government is a super American thing to do. Yeah, but, you know, he's doing America shit to America. It's not how it's supposed to work. I like the way that Bill Burr tackles all these issues. Anyway, yeah, Bill Burr is the closest to Carlin. Bill Burr is our Carlin, our generation's Carlin, for sure. Thank God. Thank God there's someone out there that has like some kind of goddamn common sense, you know? He is the coworker annihilator, okay? He is exactly the type of guy who has a no-nonsense attitude that your coworkers will respond to positively. Your coworkers will look to someone like myself and say, oh, that guy is woke, libtarded, gay, uses too many academic words. But Bill Burr, on the other hand, can say the exact same things, but in a much more eloquent way, in a way that your coworkers will respond to positively. Significantly better than even Jon Stewart, okay? Understand. Wait, hold on. What's happening here? Grams, pounds, ounces. Okay. All right, let's weigh this chicken. Jon Stewart is also way too polished and has a long track record. A lot of people like him because of the Zadroga bill. But again, Bill Burr is, I think, the voice of the hard hat wearing Americans who don't like what's going on. Time to listen to Hasan eat again? Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to die. I have to eat food. Ugh. No, but eat properly, please. I don't know what you mean by that. Didn't you just eat yesterday? I know. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but I gotta do it every day. What kind of chick is that, dude? The same chick I have pretty much every day. It's either Mediterranean or increasingly in my post-Japan experience, I've also switched it up just a little bit where I sometimes have teriyaki chicken, but it's usually just Mediterranean chicken. I will not be leaking where I got it from. I gatekeep this restaurant, even though people already know, so don't ask. The teriyaki chicken is from Ono Hawaiian Barbecue. I don't mind. I'm not going to gatekeep Ono Hawaiian Barbecue. Would you vote for Jon Stewart if he ran? Sure. Why not? Why not? I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. I thought you loved Jon Stewart. I do, but all right, let's just keep going.
Social Security will not be touched.
Yeah, I mean, I have said it so many times, you shouldn't be asking me that question. Okay? This will not be read my lips. It won't be read my lips anymore. We're not going to touch it. Now, we are going to look for fraud. I'm sure you're okay with that, like people that shouldn't be on, people that are illegal aliens and others, criminals in many cases. And that's with Social Security. We have a lot of people. You see that immediately when you see people that are 200 years old that are being sent checks for Social Security. Some of them are actually being sent checks. So we're tracing that down, and I have a feeling that Pam is going to do a very good job with that. But you have a lot of fraud. But no, I'm not. We're not doing anything on this.
Now with our GMA cover story, the growing concerns at America's national parks after federal job.
Yeah, they're saying they're not going to cut it, but they are. They're just going after fraud. Yeah. Okay. Arrest Rick Scott. Okay. Oh, you want to go after Medicare fraud? You want to go after Medicaid fraud? Arrest Rick Scott. Fraud in Social Security or fraud in Medicare and Medicaid do not happen at the point of individuals, okay? They're not fraudulently like stealing more healthcare than they deserve or something, okay? It happens at the point of providers. Except the problem is you're not going to tackle those providers. You're not going to go after those providers because they're your wealthy benefactors. Okay? That's
job cuts and how they could impact upcoming vacations, especially during the busy spring break and summer seasons. El Reshef back with the story. Hey, Ariel.
Hey there, George. Hundreds of millions of tourists visit our national parks each year, and spring break is really one of the most popular times to take in their majestic beauty. But with more than 1,000 park employees terminated in a recent wave of government job cuts, experts say you may be in for a rockier vacation. This morning, as millions gear up to spend spring break at some of the nation's most treasured parks, from Yosemite to the Grand Canyon, a warning from park officials that the deep government job cuts could have a noticeable impact on your experience.
The visitors are not going to be able to do the things they want. You know, if you want to bring your family to Yosemite and can't camp, or it takes 4 hours to get into the park, what kind of experience is that?
Nearly 1,000 park employees were laid off on Valentine's Day, and some ripple effects are already being felt, from longer lines to cut hours to closed visitor centers and canceled tours.
We had an experience for 10 options. We only did like 4.
The National Park Service says more than 325 million people visited these sites in 2023, up 4% from the year prior. But now officials say the staffing shortages will make keeping the areas pristine and visits running smoothly more challenging.
In my mind, it's a crisis.
This is good. Let's talk about Medicaid. Let's go back to the House budget cuts, because this is very important. Here's Ryan Grimm talking about what the House budget resolution passes mean for Medicaid and its future.
I think they can't do it, and it's because they don't like the program.
Yes, fundamentally, yes.
And in a lot of cases, they don't like the people on the program. And in fact, Steve Bannon on his show had to remind his audience and Republican lawmakers with them that there are MAGAs, as he says. There are MAGAs on Medicaid. Implicit in that.
He said a lot.
Yeah.
And that's right.
Implicit in that is it's just not those poor Democrats that you think about, poor black Democrats that you think about. Like in your head, when a Republican's thinking about Medicaid, and a lot of people think about Medicaid, that's what they think about. So he's telling them, okay, if that's what you think about, I understand why you want to cut it, but it's not just them. It's also MAGAs that are on it. So you start from that premise, that they don't actually like the program, and they don't like the people who are on the program. So the way that they want to cut the program is to reduce the number of people that get the program. And the way they do that is they throw up a bunch of paperwork requirements and also this work requirement, which would say you have to work 20 hours in order to get Medicaid. And if you can't find work, you basically have to come to some community center and sit there on a computer or something, and just wasting your time so that they can feel good about making you feel bad about getting the assistance that they're giving you. And so they tried this in Georgia, and they spent like $70 million on this like pilot program, and it ended up just having 6,500 people in it. So it costs an enormous amount of money to set up these projects and programs to monitor all of these people, and then you don't actually you're spending enormous amounts of money per individual, when it would be so much easier to just say, hey, if you're under this threshold, you get this money. Now, the other way that you could cut spending on this program is to go after the businesses and the scam artists that are ripping it off. There is an enormous amount of waste in Medicaid and Medicare.
It's one of them in the Senate, isn't it?
On that front.
Every aspect of government expenditures that are far too costly, the point of fraud and waste does not happen at the point of the individual consumer, at the individual civilian that is getting these entitlements. It happens at the point of the provider. It happens at the public partnership, the public-private partnership level. It's private enterprise that causes the wasteful expenditures, okay? But of course, yeah, it's medical device salesmen, okay? It's nursing homes. It's not the recipients that are doing fraud. It's the providers that are doing fraud. The problem is the providers also, with all the fraud that they're doing, have a lot of money to spend in lobbying funds. That's it. So they will never go after the actual costly middlemen. They will only go after random invisible enemies that they have hallucinated.
Yes, one of the guys in the Senate, Rick Scott from Florida, ran the largest Medicare scam in American history. And the way you do a Medicare scam or a Medicaid scam is, like I heard recently about a Medicaid one in New York where people were saying, like dentists will do these, others will do, like say, we'll give you a toaster for free if you will come in and sign a piece of paper that says I pulled your tooth or whatever. And then I submit this. You could invest money in inspectors and probably AI at this point, analyzing the different payment schemes and finding this fraud and targeting it and prosecuting it and going after it. I think the reason that Republicans won't do that is it would make the program work better. And as I said in the beginning, they don't like the program. What that would do.
And they don't like the program because it helps poor people. That's it.
It would solidify it, and it would make people feel better about the program, and so they would support it more. But there is indeed, you could, so it's $880 billion that they're trying to cut over 10 years. I think you could actually do that without hurting individual people, but you would have to stand up a serious program of investigation. Hey, guess what? There's like 150,000 federal workers who are well-trained that were just fired. You can go hire them to do that at pennies. Just continuing to pay their salaries. Actually, a lot of them are on administrative leave now or unemployment, so we're paying them anyway. We're just paying them not to work. So pay them, put them to work, go find the fraud. It was much easier to do Medicare and Medicaid fraud, before we have the technology that we do now. Like if you're some like South Florida like scam operation and you've stolen a bunch of Medicare numbers that you can find online, what they do is they steal these numbers, they pretend that they sold wheelchairs to them, they charge $7,000, they cash the check, move the money, shut down, and then start up a new thing and do it again. I'm not a technologist, but it's gotta be pretty easy to figure out how to make somebody prove that you actually did sell and have something to do with making wheelchairs or selling wheelchairs. Like, did you do it or not? Scooters is the big one.
That's it. But the problem is, those guys are the ones who have the money. Do you understand? So they're not going to go after the people who actually have the money because they're basically giving, at least a piece of those profits back to the Republican congresspersons that keep them safe.
If it's the employees that are gone, I'm not sure how the park could stay open.
Some travelers and local businesses are bracing for a spring shakeup.
Businesses that are here in Baker certainly rely on tourism and travelers. So we're unsure what that's going to look like this season.
I was on lunch on February 14th and got a call from my supervisor and just had to be out and done by 5 p.m. And so it was a mad dash.
Ben Shreves is one of the park employees who recently lost his job.
People were working overtime to provide the best experience, and they were already struggling to do that. And part of that was just a lack of resources. And so now it's just like they have even less of that.
Experts say if you're planning to traverse the parks this spring, to be patient and over-prepare.
There's going to be a big imbalance between the number of people who are going to the parks and the amount of staff that can help them.
And the Park Service has about 20,000 employees. The Trump administration has rolled back some of those firings and says it will hire 3,000 seasonal workers. In the meantime, if you're planning a vacation to a national park, prepare for a slightly different experience. You want to make sure you have your maps, make sure you have everything you need, because there may not be a park ranger or someone to help you out when you're out there.
Big difference for a lot of people.
Speaking of Elon Musk, he will be at Donald Trump's first cabinet meeting today, even though, of course, Musk is not part of the cabinet. There is new information.
Yeah, we don't need rangers. You could just vibe the bears, problem solved. Exactly. No, we don't need rangers at all, man. Who cares about forest safety, upkeep, making sure that people are safe and secure when they're visiting our national parks? Who cares? Actually, fuck the national parks. Let's just literally melt them so that we can have more lame-ass, fuck-ass AI art. Burn the forest down. A la Bobby. 505s, thank you for the 100 gifted subs.
This morning about Musk's effort to cut back on the federal workforce. Weijia Jiang is at the White House. So, Weijia, what are we learning about this?
Good morning, Vlad. Good morning, everybody. Sources tell CBS News the administration plans to issue a new memo in the coming days directing agencies to prepare for large-scale firings, adding to the existing anxiety over directives from Musk to federal workers that continue to create more questions than answers.
President Trump backed Elon Musk's latest warning to federal workers. While they have more time to submit what they accomplished last week, failing to answer would cost them a job.
Well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also if you don't answer, I guess you get fired.
But earlier, the White House press secretary said it's up to departments. Many have told staffers not to reply.
For some of the agencies that you've seen who have said, please don't send these emails, it's in their best interest for that specific agency, and the president supports that.
Now, the administration is preparing to direct federal agencies to submit reorganization plans by March 13th as part of sweeping reductions in force. In Musk's own Department of Government Efficiency, 21 staffers resigned, saying in a letter they refuse to compromise core government systems, jeopardize Americans' sensitive data, or dismantle critical public services. Musk called them Dem political holdovers who would have been fired.
Oh, we are absolutely in a crisis mode.
Randy Irwin is the president of NFFE, a union that represents 110,000 federal workers, many of whom he says are terrified about what Musk and his team will do next.
Bro, what's happening in here? There's so many people who keep... Is it one guy who's just spamming this? Or is there a bunch of guys from Canada who keep saying, your fucking national parks are going to be nothing when the Canadians stop visiting them? Is it one guy or is it multiple Canadians who keep saying this? Is that the new thing? Is Canada doing a BDS on American national parks? I keep seeing, you're going to need those parks when we, Canada, stop sending wood across the border. Okay, this guy is actually tackling it from a different issue. But there's like hella people, there's a bunch of Canadians in the chat who keep saying, we're not visiting your parks no more. You're cooked. Damn, bro. Love the anti-Semitic shirt. The anti-Semitic shirt. Yeah. Also, going back to the Canadians, 100% on board with you. We deserve BDS. Please. If you can do it, okay? I literally cannot comprehend the concept of Canadian nationalism. I can't either, but they deserve it. They deserve to have a little bit of emancipatory nationalism against the America-KKK rats, okay? There is no country more deserving of a boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement outside of obviously fucking Israel. But even Israel itself, you could compound into America's crimes, considering that Israel is an extension of the United States of America. So, the problem, of course, is we are the big bad. So it's virtually impossible to avoid us. Just like the top of the hour ad break, which you can avoid by subscribing. Canadian or not, for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Is what I would say if I kept running 3-minute ad breaks at the top of the hour. I no longer do them, but you can still subscribe for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub if you're lucky. Is 12 in Canada? I don't know how much it is in fake Canadian Monopoly money. All right. But I hit you with that debate. It's kind of funny. I thought this guy was just like memeing, but I think they were being serious when they said nice anti-Semitic shirt. Never mind. Maybe not. Have the Turks invented anything? I can't tell if he's being serious or memeing. All right, let's keep going.
Created a toxic work environment, and nobody wants to work under those conditions. It's not worth it. They don't pay federal employees enough to put up with this garbage.
Oh, after reporters asked repeated questions about who's actually leading the Department of Government Efficiency yesterday, a White House official told CBS News that person is Amy Gleason, a veteran of the first Trump administration, and she is the acting administrator right now. When reached by phone yesterday, Gleason told us she was in Mexico and declined to further comment. Vlad?
Remarkable. Ouija, we also heard there are some changes to how the press is going to cover the White House. Can you explain that a bit for us?
Sure, Vlad. So first, let me explain how coverage of the president works a little bit. So whether he is in the Oval Office or traveling abroad, there is always a group of journalists called the press pool that covers his every move, then shares notes, video, and sound with colleagues who can't be there. You can't have 100 people in the Oval. So since 1914, the White House Correspondents Association has organized that pool, which rotates every day. It is a nonpartisan group that came up with professional standards over decades that everyone has to adhere to. But yesterday, the White House announced that its officials will now decide who gets to be in that pool, which also means it will decide who covers the president up close and holds him accountable. That includes print, television, wire services, and radio journalists. Vlad.
Wow. All right, Ouija, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So President Trump's first cabinet meeting will take place today, and Elon Musk is expected to be there. Joining us right now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
You've been making a lot of news at these briefings. This is the first cabinet meeting. Elon Musk is going to be there. I know there's been a lot of talk about the emails asking about the productivity. Is he going to be asking the cabinet members for an update today?
Well, first of all, we're so
Why is their response always wow with no further comments? I mean, Loki, what can you say? Like, I agree. It's annoying. But like, sometimes even I do that because there's just like nothing I can, like, I look at the situation, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to fucking say about this, you know? Sometimes all you got is a, wow, that's crazy. You know, how many eggs you eat a day, brother? Unfortunately, currently the number is 0 because of the stupid ass avian flu. The number right now is 0. I'm very frustrated. I try to purchase eggs. I look all around. I've gone to multiple grocery stores. None of them have eggs. Doge quietly deleted 5 of his biggest spending cuts as celebrated last week. An $8 billion cut at ICE was actually for $8 million. 655 million U.S. aid cuts were actually a single cut erroneously counted 3 times. A $232 million cut at the Social Security Administration was actually just for $556,000. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at these dipshits. I'm shocked that these dipshits are not actually cutting anything at all.
For the president that goes against what he says, he has a right to fire them. So thank you.
Absolutely. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Kassar, for 5 minutes.
I'm going to do something that I've never done in a congressional hearing before, and that is plead for help from the American people, plead for help from my Republican colleagues on something that we actually all agree on, because lives are at stake right now. I'm going to start by describing the facts on the ground. Millions of people are at risk of dying of starvation in areas of the world where Democrats and Republicans have already agreed and committed to feeding them with American-grown food and for global stability. But yesterday, I spoke with people in charge of warehouses in Sudan and Ethiopia, warehouses full of food, but because of Doge, that food is trapped in the warehouse out of reach of starving and dying moms and kids. In those 2 countries alone, 150,000 children and moms are at risk of dying this month if that food is not delivered from the warehouse to them right up the road. Everyone agrees that's not supposed to happen. Republicans voted for this food, and Democrats voted for this food to get out. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the food should go out as part of his life-saving waiver. Doge Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene started this hearing by saying that life-saving food programs should still be running. We have paid for the food, and we have shipped it, and it is sitting trapped in the warehouse because Doge is blocking the payments needed to get the food out to the people who need it. So here's what that means. It means that kids are dying, and more will die tomorrow, of severe acute malnutrition. If you want nightmares, just Google severe acute malnutrition and look at the photos. The way that healthcare workers determine if a kid is dying of this is they measure their bicep. And if their bicep is less than 4.5 inches around, then that means you could die of starvation tomorrow. Think of a kid's arm fitting through this hole. Think of your kid's arm fitting through this hole. These kids could die tomorrow. You've heard today about the waiver for life-saving humanitarian assistance. And
bro, I want to. Hola, Bobby. 505. Thank you for another 100 gifted subs. I mean this with all sincerity. I think if you were to tell the average Republican all of this, like the average Republican voter, they would say, fuck them. Holy crap. Slate did all thing on E. Take a day off, chatter. Named Hasan's poop sock. You think I don't know where that fucking link goes to? Your name is literally Hasan's poop sock. Average Asman viewer would too. I mean, the average Asman viewer is a Trump voter. So yes, they would probably be like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Fuck it. Let the food rot. Kill them.
And all I'm asking is for Rubio's waiver to be made real. People watching at home, you can do something about this. I know many of these hearings are live on Fox News. I'm a Democrat. For many of the people watching, you may not agree with me on many issues. But I think we can all agree that this food needs to get out of the warehouse and to these kids. I've gotten phone calls from conservative friends, people of faith that moved to Africa to live out their faith of I was naked and you clothed me, I was hungry and you fed me. And they agree that this food should be given out. So call your Republican congressperson, call the White House, tell them you know they didn't mean to do this, but that this food needs to go out tomorrow. If you're in the press, cover this story. Ask questions about Ethiopia. Ask questions about Sudan. Tell the world about this. And to my Republican colleagues, Doge is not going to listen to me, but you can fix this. Pick up the phone, make a phone call. Y'all could save lives today. Send an email. Please put politics aside, get the food out of the warehouse, save these kids' lives.
The Doge staff at HUD are all real estate bros. They're looking to sell off public housing. Incredible stuff. There was too much public housing to begin with. That's what I always say. Go to the comments. I'm curious. I love watching him cry. We the people cannot afford to feed ourselves. Thank you, Doge. I'm so happy that Doge is taking back our money. I'm ready for that $5,000 check. Then start a charity and raise your own money and feed them. The government. It's a government, not a charity. Told you. Told you. Dude. Conservatism basically revolves around being awful to other people. It's, the ideology is held together by vice signaling. A U.S. initiative to increase electricity supply in Africa has been dismantled by the Trump administration after more than a decade of work. Yeah, well, China rising, baby. They have a term for it called rugged individualism, which is basically a misunderstanding of being a selfish fucking asshole. Okay? This is at the heart of Republican policy. This is at the heart of Republican ideology. Ironically enough, a lot of the collectivist action that these guys yell about with regular frequency is not done out of the kindness of the American heart. We do not feed African nations or build their electricity grid simply because we want them to advance. We do not even do it because we feel embarrassed for the crimes of colonialism that we put African nations through. We do it for soft power in a similar way to why China does it. China also has an additional economic reason for it, but it's mostly for soft power. So that these countries collaborate with us, so that when push comes to shove and we want to invade a foreign nation and violate its sovereignty by lying on the global stage, we can turn around and say, hey, look, all these countries are behind us because we are the world's police. We help out all these other nations. So when America undermines its soft power capabilities, what it's actually doing is undermining global dominance, you know? Good luck. The invention of individual responsibility. Then and now. Wait, I've watched this video? I don't think I watched this video. This video radicalized me a bit when you showed it on stream. Did I watch this video? I don't remember it. Then and now fucking cooks. A lot of people are saying yes, but I don't remember it. Ah.